Ladies and gentlemen, Tucker Carlson has it all figured out, and it's Israel's fault.
How did this tiny country convince the world's great superpower with the greatest military in history to do its bidding in a way that was going to hurt it? The most obvious answer is because Bibi told the president of the United States, you can join me or not, but I'm going. And at that point, you really only have two choices. Get on board or tell Israel no. And if they did it, that would not protect us because there are hundreds of thousands of Americans in the Middle East, and they're also the world's most important energy infrastructure. Now, of course, there's a third theoretical option. You say, no, and if you do it, we're gonna cut off aid. But that was not even on the table. The last president to do that was John F. Kennedy in 1962 when he got in a dispute with the founding prime minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, over Israel's nuclear program at Dimona. And President Kennedy said, no, can't keep testing, and I'm demanding inspections. And of course, he was not able to make good on those promises because he was killed. The truth is, and this is hard to say as a proud American, but the United States didn't make the decision here. Benjamin Netanyahu did.
I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and Tucker Carlson, of course, is in the grips of a blame Israel first, blame Israel only, obsessive and poisonous ideology. The idea that anyone is dictating to Donald Trump what he does, including Bibi Netanyahu, is completely absurd. Trump prides himself on being totally in charge, and he's had a more interventionist foreign policy in his second term. We saw it in Venezuela. He goes in and snatches the head of state of Venezuela. Did Bibi force him to do that? We hear rumblings out in the open about Cuba. He may move on Cuba. Is Bibi going to be the one who forced him to do that as well? So this military operation is characteristic of Trump in his second term. And he's talked about the necessity of doing something like this since 1980. And everything we've gotten, every indication publicly from himself, privately, is that he is thoroughly committed to this mission. It is not unusual for U.S. presidents to believe it is completely intolerable for Iran to have a nuclear weapon or to acquire a nuclear weapon. In fact, this has been the norm throughout recent American history. Trump is just much more serious about it. And the idea that no American president can tell Israel no is crazy. Trump himself has said no just a couple times that we know about. End of the 12-day war, Israel sending planes to hit regime targets. Trump says no, turn him around, and publicly condemns Israel and says how effing stupid it was. He forced Bibi to make concessions in the Gaza war. And the sly insinuation in that video from Tucker that JFK is the only U.S. president in the last 50 years, 60 years, whatever it is, to say no to Israel and somehow ended up assassinated is toxic and stupid. Pasquale Emmanuel Gobry had a good ex post on this the other day. We'll skip over Trump, but Obama pretty effing famously made a nuclear deal with Iran that Israel saw as an existential crisis. Bush forced elections in Gaza and the West Bank over Israel's objections. Bush invaded Iraq over Israel's objections. Clinton arm-twisted Israel into offering Arafat an absurdly lopsided peace deal, which Arafat refused. Everyone on the American side is still coping and seething about this a quarter century later. Nixon and Kissinger famously told Israel in the run-up to the Yom Kippur War that they would get, quote, not as much as a bolt, end quote, if they did a preemptive strike, even though Egypt and Syria were very clearly mobilizing for war, which ended up almost costing Israel its national life. Nixon and Kissinger only sent aid to Israel in the late stages of the Yom Kippur War, and only after Golda Meir essentially engaged in nuclear blackmail. The aid they received was an order of magnitude smaller than the Soviet aid received by Israel's antagonist. Eisenhower put an arms embargo on Israel. Every U.S. president until Trump very wrongly refused to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But according to Tucker, Israel is manipulating us and Donald Trump in subtle and devious ways all the time. You know, the talk of the Iranians trying to assassinate Donald Trump. You know who's responsible for people thinking that might have happened? Yes, the Israelis.
But let's start with the purported assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Now, why are those significant? Because yesterday, the President of the United States said, I did this, and by this, I mean killed the head of state of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei. He tried to kill me twice, but I got him first. It's almost a verbatim quote from the president who thinks that. He's been told that. Get it? What do we know about that? Where did that intelligence come from that proved that the government of Iran, run by the Ayatollah, this religious leader, tried to assassinate the president of the United States twice? Do we know where that came from? Oh, it came from Israel.
Now, it's very curious that Tucker would be so skeptical of this, given that the Iranian government makes a practice of assassinating people on foreign soil all the time, and two, would have a clear motive here, right? Remember, Trump engaged in that targeted killing of Soleimani in his first term that the Iranian government did not like very much. And two, Trump is a clear and present danger to the regime, as we see every day now with this bombing campaign. And the men involved in these plots have said that they were backed by Iran. There's a trial going on of one of these guys as we speak. Here's the headline in the New York Times: man accused of plotting to kill Trump blames Iran for scheme. I don't know. I guess Israel is responsible for that too. The piece goes on to say a Pakistani man accused of plotting to murder American politicians, including President Trump, testified on Wednesday that he had worked with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to devise his scheme, which included hiring hitmen. Asaf Merchant, who is on trial on terrorism and murder for hire charges in federal district court in Brooklyn, said that he had been forced to go along with the plot to protect his family in Tehran from the Revolutionary Guard Corps. Mr. Merchant said he had never been ordered to kill a specific person, but over the course of many conversations in Tehran, Mr. Merchant said his Iranian handler did name 3 people: Trump, Biden, and Nikki Haley. Prosecutors have said that Mr. Merchant tried to orchestrate the murder plot under the direction of the Revolutionary Guard Corps, who have repeatedly sought to avenge Major General Qasem Soleimani, the spy master behind Iran's security machinery, who was killed by an American drone on January 3rd, 2020, courtesy, of course, of Donald Trump. Now, it takes considerable creativity and a lot of malice toward Israel to make that story somehow about nefarious Israeli dealings. Tucker makes so much of how he's an American who loves his country. Well, isn't he outraged by the foreign power that tried to assassinate the former president and now current president of his own country? But this is Tucker's MO, and you might have noticed that the Gulf states are under fire in this war. You know who Tucker Carlson wants you to believe that they are in part under fire from? Yes, you guessed it, Israel.
It hasn't been reported, but it's a fact that last night in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, authorities arrested Mossad agents planning on committing bombings in those countries. Now, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. Why would the Israelis be committing bombings in 2 Gulf countries, which are also being attacked by Iran? Aren't they on the same side? That's weird. That doesn't make any sense.
Now, Tucker is a big advocate of these Gulf states. Again, you think he'd be outraged at Iran for missiling them and droning them constantly, trying to disrupt their commerce and their way of life, right? No, Tucker makes it about Mossad, and this is a complete falsehood, or was a complete falsehood, as Al Jazeera, a source Tucker, given his current predilections, should like and trust, reported. Headline: Qatar announces arrest of Iran's IRG sleeper cells. Wait a minute, I thought they were Mossad sleeper cells. Guess not. Story goes on to say Qatar has announced the arrest of what it called 2 cells operating from Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. 10 suspects were arrested in the cells. The Qatar news agency announced on Tuesday 7 had been assigned to spy on vital and military facilities in Qatar, while 3 were tasked with carrying out sabotage operations. During interrogation, the suspects admitted their affiliation with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and that they had been tasked with espionage missions and sabotage activities, Q&A reported. But wait. It gets better. It always gets better with Tucker Carlson. Here's another one of his theories for why this war is being waged.
There are key players involved in this war, the one happening tonight, who believe that what we're seeing on our television screens and on Twitter will usher in a series of events that begin with the destruction of the Dome in the Rock, Aqsa Mosque, and then the rebuilding of the Third Temple, after which the world will end. God will come back. And they mean it. And by they, we mean literally some of the guys fighting the war. So you may have read reports today that commanders in the field of American troops, a lot of them, and who knows if this is true, but it's out there, told their troops on the eve of the outbreak of this war that we're doing this for Jesus, because it is Jesus' will that we do this, and that by doing it, we will usher in a series of events that bring about the end of history, the end of time, Armageddon, the last days.
Okay, I don't know about these U.S. officers or commanders, but I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump wants to get in and out of this war without causing the end times. He just wants to eliminate these nuclear missile programs, a lot of the Iranian military capacity, and perhaps change the regime or create a more pliable regime without gas prices spiking too much, let alone without causing the apocalypse. But Carlson goes on in the segment to point out their IDF soldiers who have shoulder patches showing an image of the temple, and this supposedly proves the real point of this war is to seize the Temple Mount and destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And Tucker knows who's behind these patches, supposedly, and behind this insidious agenda.
This has been going on a long time in public through, in part, the efforts of a group called Chabad, Chabad. And you may know people who give money to Chabad or run into Chabad, super nice people, engaged in all kinds of charitable activities, drug rehab. There's a lot about Chabad that's really good. But what is Chabad exactly? Well, Chabad, you can look it up, is a very old organization, about 250 years old. And it's a branch of Hasidic Judaism. It's an organization that was overseen for many years by a guy called Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, who was famously in Brooklyn, considered the Messiah by some of his followers, who was a friend of presidents, or certainly someone presidents visited. He was a very powerful man in the Orthodox and the Hasidic community. And he was the overseer of Chabad, which predated him and outlasted him, but he was its most visible ambassador. And Chabad has been pushing in a pretty subtle way, unless you look carefully, for the reconstruction of the Third Temple. And it seems like, from the reading we did recently, that those patches actually came from Chabad.
Now, Carlson provides no evidence for his claim that Chabad is supposedly responsible for these evil shoulder patches. And then there's the organization itself as a charitable organization. It's focused on good works. It's trying to bring Jews closer to Judaism. The way it wants to hasten the coming of the Messiah is through good work. So this is a little bit like saying the Red Cross is a dangerous sectarian operation because it has a cross right there in its logo, or saying the Salvation Army is a very dangerous military force because there it is right in the title. It's an army. This is crazy. And by the way, if Israel did want to take over the Temple Mount and destroy the mosque and build a third temple, it can do it right now. It has the force to do it, but it doesn't want to. And the way to do it is not by destroying missile launchers in Iran. So Iran can't missile and drone Israel and other surrounding states, including those Gulf states, again, that Tucker's supposed to like so much. So this isn't even an attempt at the truth. This is just coming up with every wild theory and malicious lie you can to smear Israel and the Jews. Now, there are all sorts of legitimate misgivings and criticisms about this war. It's fine to say it's wrong. We shouldn't be doing it, but that's not what Tucker Carlson is doing. He's going so much further than that. Now, we already knew who he is, but he's providing disgusting reminders almost every day now. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.